it's almost like I planned it. But the next session is really a wonderful segue from lamestream media to the guys who are eating our breakfast. And that is a session to focus on creators. And when you look at the demographics of the sort of people that We Are Era are normally reaching, I bet it's younger than 64 and 68. So let's continue with that theme. Colm is going to host today. Colm is ENEX's digital editor, also based in Dublin. We've got a bit of Dublin theme going on here. And Tobias from We Are Era, CEO of We Are Era. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. I'm all good. I got this. Cheers. Thanks, Adrian. So I want to start today by showing a quick video, first of all, filmed in the Oval Office back in February when Macron met with President Trump. A video posted to Instagram.
He's a smart customer, I will tell you.
Mr. President, you called
exactly what
Mr. President, you called Zelensky a dictator. Would you use the same words regarding Putin?
I don't use those words lightly. I think that we're going to see how it all works out. Let's see what happens. I think we have a chance of a really good settlement between various countries. And, you're talking about Europe and you're talking about Ukraine as part of that whole situation. The other side has a lot of support also. So let's see how it all works out. It might work out. Look, you can never make up lives. One thing you can make up the money, but you can't make up the lives. A lot of lives lost. I think probably a lot more lives than people are talking about. It's been a rough war, but I think we're close to getting.
That video was posted by a young Frenchman, Hugo Travers, also known as online name Hugo Decrypt. He has 5 million followers on Instagram, 8 million on TikTok, also a substantial YouTube following. He's part of a growing tribe of news influencers, content creators creating content about the news, but acting independently of any media outlets. There's more people operating in this sphere as well. You have Dylan Page, who creates a lot of content, who posts a lot of content on gym selfies mixed with videos about the latest tariffs in the US and the government shutdown. Lisa Miller would be somebody operating in the same operation as well, and Under the Desk News, VSFR, all have a substantial following on the likes of TikTok. Give you an example of them here.
Governments around the world are not ready for Gen Z protests. And here's why. This week, there's been even more. In Madagascar, following several days of major nationwide Gen Z protests, the country's president conceded and was forced to dissolve the government. In his address to the country, he added that he now wants to hold talks with young people who are demanding an end to the constant water and power cuts. Happening at the same time in Morocco, protests largely organized by a group called Gen Z 212.
And here's what happened. Since about February of this year, ICE has been raiding entire apartment complexes, claiming that almost every single person who lives in the apartments is Tren de Agua gang members. And the evidence that Kash Patel is presenting for why he thinks that every single person living in an apartment complex is a member of a gang is this. There was graffiti on a door that said Venezuela. It's giving. Now, if you think back, you'll remember about the ICE raid on an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. Back then, they raided 3 different apartment complexes, all of them owned by CBZ Real Estate Management. You'll remember that CBZ claim.
So the first guy there, Dylan, he has 2.4 million followers on Instagram, 17.5 on Instagram or on TikTok. For comparison, CNN have 10.9 on TikTok, BBC have 9.8. So quite a significant audience. If you dive into this world, you'll see a range of hard news stories to also your soft news, your celebrity interviews, and also you'll see a range of objectivity going on. Some of them are very straight with their news, and some definitely have a bit of bias going in there as well. In recent research from the Pew Institute, they found that 1 in 5 Americans are now getting their news from news influencers. And in a bit of research I've done on this, I wanted to find out what it was that young people are attracted to this audience. Obviously, being on TikToks and platforms like that, they are getting a massive young audience. So I read Teen Vogue, which don't ask me why, but they interviewed some young people and they credited the conversational tone and personal feel of the influencers over the onslaught of breaking news alerts from legacy outlets. And they also credited not having to leave TikTok, being able to stay within the platform and not have to leave it as something within that as well. In the last few days, CNN have announced a new initiative called CNN Creators based in Doha, which will concentrate on this kind of content, including a weekly TV show featuring this kind of content as well. So here today to discuss this, I have Tobias Schiwek, the CEO of We Are Era. They are a pan-European studio and talent agency who work with a growing number of creators of news content. And also joining us here, we have Stefan Schilling, who is the VP of PR and Communications at We Are Era. So welcome, Tobias. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
So, yeah, go for it. So first of all, what does it tell us when these individual voices have so much power in the news?
Yeah, it feels a bit strange. We talk about so big topics here, Gaza and everything, and then I enter the stage talking about influencers. But I think the pattern has an impact on society more than you see on the surface, because they're a symptom of something that we see across the world. We've seen burning houses. I'm convinced that we are only at the beginning of a power shift, a tectonic shift, and it goes into business, but also into society, where hierarchical power or hierarchical authority is being spread out to networks. And that can be anything, right? That can be Capitol Hill, that can be Black Lives Matter, that can be Brexit. But power is now distributed into networks. And that is super important to understand. There's hedge funds being brought down by Reddit. And creators and influencers are just one symptom of that. So we distribute influence over a community. And then the question is, why do people form as a community? And that is a sense of belonging. That's way more than age. We were talking about age and social demographics. Of course, it plays a role, but the more important thing is attitude, your value system. What do you see in life? And that explains influencers. So basically, they're just one part of a bigger picture, which is a community economy, or society, if you like, platform agnostically, by the way. And we've looked into that a lot. And if you look at an influencer and you make an interview, which we did, 6 hours with a psychologist, asking them, why did you decide to go in front of camera? What's your attitude towards life? What are your values? La-di-la-di. And you map that to their audience. You have an average and overlap of 85% in the perspective, how they look at the world. So I try not to make a too vague answer. There's a room full of journalists. You won't get me away with that. But I think that is the important.
I'm getting very anxious. You're going to fall off the stage.
Come. Oh, you're right. I would make a great picture for you.
That would have went viral.
You're right. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, why do you think they chose this route instead of joining one of our newsrooms here? What made them go independent? And was that a failing on the news on traditional media side, or
there is a lot of it, like a lot to unpack. I think for many of them it just happened. If you can create your own personality brand out of your bedroom, why would you pick another career? And they just started talking about what moves them. We've seen Hugo. I just learned it's a former student of yours. He did what he was passionate about, and then just worked out. He did not ask for permission. He was just going out talking about what he. I mean, that is the point, right? Of course, it's a form of journalism that is very often leaning to its opinion or putting it into context. But then you roll with it, and maybe you don't go back. And we had that in the conversation before. I'm not sure that makes sense now, but we also do produce a lot of content. We did one for the public broadcast. When the public broadcast in Germany started a journalistic format, or not a journalistic format, a whole broadcasting concept for younger audiences. And there is a social demographic aspect. At some point, they decided to not put it in linear, but put it on basically American-owned social networks, and they put tax money on there to produce content to reach younger audiences. And we had, right from the start, a lot of formats, and one of them was the Lighthouse journalistic format that they had. It was not news. It was with attitude. There was always one topic per week, attitude, clearly taking one side or the other, provocative sometimes. And for those Germans that know the format, Frontal 21, so Frontal 21 is a very infamous format of ZDF. They value journalistic integrity really highly, but everybody in front of camera was not a journalist. There were people that were just interested in politics, and the editor-in-chief of the headquarters was really fighting against these people. She said, we need proper journalists, and we were fighting for these guys. Ultimately, and that is like 7-8 years ago.
Okay.
The interesting part is there were 5 hosts. 4 of them are now proper TV journalists, each of them having their own magazine on the public broadcaster.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about some of the people who you work with, some of the projects that you've collaborated with them on. Obviously, you work with a range of different social disciplines, but in relation to news influencers, could you give us some examples?
I mean, in our case, I think we have a couple of pictures, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who the first is. Yeah, Fabian is the first one. I like him a lot. He started with comedy when he was 14. Maybe some of you know him, but he's now, yeah, he has some activism in him for the queer community, sustainability. He made news about 2 years ago when he started. So he registered a hashtag that was used by right-wing people that were abusing the Pride Month with a right-wing term. He registered that as a trademark, and now he's earning money and suing the right-wing guys using that hashtag, which is an amazing approach, I think. So it's Stolzmonat in German. I think the Austrian right-wing guys started with that one. Not always claiming the young Austrians, but in that case was them. And what he does is now he's releasing books like Kara.
Okay.
She's a 3 times Spiegel bestseller. She talks about feminism, about toxic masculinism. She's giving voice to a certain demographic. She's selling out her tour. She's now on tour. We sell out every single venue within 24 hours. A sense of belonging. People want to be there and just talk to like-minded people. So she's giving a voice again.
So she built her audience online, and then she was able to take that off platform into a physical form.
Exactly.
And then monetize that or create more of a revenue from that as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And what is it about these people that the audience are turning to? Why do you think people are going toward, like 1 in 5 Americans going to news influencers for the news? Why are they going there? What's the increase in that? Why are they trusting them more?
I think it's the sense of belonging, the vicinity. They are, and Nikki probably has excellent, perfect. She's a perfect example. That's Nikki. She started with us in 2019 when she had 400,000 followers out of the Netherlands, and all you could see was her face. Makeup tutorials. If you look at it from now it's obvious she's really tall, but if you look at it from the surface, you could say, okay, it's smoky eye tutorials, it's lipstick tutorials. But why do people watch her tutorial but not the other one of another beauty influencer? The reason in Nikki's case was she was always talking about don't live someone else's life. As long as you do not hurt anybody else, live what you want to live up to. And people were starting, like there was a smoky eye tutorial probably, and people were talking about career choices in the comment section. And that is why people come. They use the creator to find people that are just like them as a North Star to orientate. And then she did grow from platform to platform to platform. She was blackmailed. That is a big part of the story. Nobody knew that Nikki's trans. So she revealed it when she already had maybe 20 million followers, and then had a breakthrough moment to now about 50. And she is an icon for a certain attitude towards life, and she can verbalize what others can't. And people that are just like her or need that kind of orientation can find each other. So they come for the person, but they stay for the community.
Oh, sorry. So actually, bear me 1 second. So someone like Nikki there, just to speak about that actually, because I know there was a story in the news this week about German influencers avoiding tax paying. So obviously, she'd be an example of someone who's making a lot of revenue online. So explain to us how the likes of TikTok followings turn into money and turn into being able to pay your bills. And then we can talk about the tax paying on that as well.
Of course. I mean, the tax thing is ridiculous. They're already giving so much to society. Why should they pay taxes? No, I'm just joking. We were just lucky that it was just luck, but none of our influences was affected. So yes, it is really hard to say that one is earning the money like the other. What comes first is always building up reach. I think that relevance is more important. Hollow reach doesn't pay your bills sustainably. If you take Fabian, the first one, he will never make it beyond 2 million followers, but you know exactly what you get. Since he is so active in sustainability, there will not be too many brands he can work with.
Okay.
But we release books. We put him on stages as a speaker, whatever. If you take Nikki, she's more on the commercial side of things. She does everything. She releases jewelry with the Kardashians, name it. The paradox is once you can earn with ads on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever, it becomes your lowest revenue stream. I'm talking about media ads, like the pre-rolls, the mid-rolls, everything that you get in there. Once you have taking that threshold, you make much more money with product integrations, own products, own events, monetizing your intellectual property.
But for news influencers who have to talk about straight news and talk about the issues of the day, does that create a compromise when they have to also take these paid partnerships?
Well,
like how is their content distinguished?
Right? Yeah, I mean, they have to distinguish it if they want to be if they want to have authority. Of course, they have to make a separation of that. The thing is, if you're a one-man show, a one-woman show, it's hard to separate the editorial team from the commercial team for your own mental health. But they have to, because they lose credibility. And like I said, I do not like the term authenticity because everybody's calling it like that. What I like to call it is relevance and reach and attention. You can buy relevance, you have to earn, and you can burn it immediately. And if you are being caught as a news influencer that you dilute your opinion based on money, you basically use, and you're a one-woman, one-man show, you lose the whole foundation of your business model. In theory, to be honest, there is a lot of nonsense going on, and people might not lose it, and people do not look through it. But those that work with us, we take them on a hero's journey. We ask them, what is your plan for the next 20 years? And of course, we try to educate them on how to do that. But yeah, like I said, I mean, there is always, like every year we'll find 20, 30 scandals like that in the industry.
And then influencers and newsrooms. Have you had can you give some examples of influencers who you've had collaborate with newsrooms, or has that been something that you've explored?
Of course, I mean, Tara, she's writing at least for Spiegel. If you take, I'm using our examples obviously because that's where I'm closer to. Fabian, the first one, he's very often working with journalists. What he says is, without them, he would not have the topics to talk about because he's putting it into context. He tries to learn from journalists, have your second source, things like that. So at least he takes it very seriously. And I do believe it makes a lot of sense to collaborate. Like back to the point of a community, this is a network, right? When I said power is being distributed into network, and the interesting thing is a network gets stronger if you share it. If you share relevance, it doubles. If you share attention, it splits. But if you really share the network and you contribute something, the creator is there so people find each other. The right holders, the journalists are there to contribute something to that community that has found each other through the creator. It can be a very synergetic approach that makes a lot of sense to everyone.
And what CNN are doing this week with they're trying to, I suppose, grow this news influencers in a lab instead of letting them be created organically. How do you, is that going to fail, or do you think can it be created like that in that way, or does it have to occur organically in nature?
Of course, it has to. Somehow it has to be natural. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Would you like to see your editor-in-chief be a rapper? Most likely not. And sometimes that also applies to, do you want him to see on TikTok? But sometimes it does make sense. Take the personalities you have. The point is, we were just talking about, Raza mentioned that the articles are not being written by ChatGPT. You have to put a face against it so it creates credibility. And I think, I don't like legacy media, if you'd call it established media. They have a head start in trust. Like nobody can build that so quickly now, like all the established media has done. But the point is, they have a huge foundation of trust, but now they are whispering in a digital world that is super noisy. And I think the only solution to solve that is being as noisy as the other guys who create the noise, but using the head start of trust. And I have no idea how to do that without faces, because that is how people trust people. People will never trust or build a relationship to a brand. They need a personality. And maybe it's not, proper neutral journalism that will trigger the algorithm. But if it's a synergetic approach, there's a huge opportunity.
Okay. And just, I know we were speaking earlier on, but Susan mentioned the fact-checking unit at the Journal. Yeah. Obviously, to everyone in this room, news verification is a very important thing.
Yeah.
When you have these one-person team creating news, what kind of conversations do you have with them about news verification, about fact-checking from their side?
Of course. I mean, one thing is important to say, if we manage creators like these guys, and they do their thing, we have no influence on what they're posting. which is an amazing job for Stefan when he gets calls middle in the night when somebody posted something. But if we work together with them on a project, we bring in trained journalists to teach them how to do it. And if we have somebody who's interested, like Fabian, even if he does it by himself, he wants to learn how to be a proper journalist, because I think none of those three would call themselves a creator or an influencer.
Okay.
Fabian calls himself a journalist. Tara in the middle calls herself an author, and I think Nikki would say she's a businesswoman. Nobody wants to be an influencer. But if you want to be a proper journalist, you have to behave like such. And Fabian, for instance, like this is one of the things that I mentioned. He is only using, even if he's using his opinion, before he uploads the video, he's at least checking whether two separate sources have confirmed the video that he's commenting on, at least.
Okay. And then, so I suppose another thing I want to talk to you about is, everybody in this room, we have TV channels, we have radio broadcasts, we have websites. They're sitting on these platforms that are owned by tech bros who could wake up in a bad mood and deplatform them. Does that worry you? Because that could end careers overnight.
Of course. I mean, that is something, like I said, that is bigger than it seems.
Yeah. When the influencers come to you, do you stress to them the importance of one day taking this from the platform?
Of course.
Okay.
The thing is, they are one man. Like, this is ridiculous, right? She made it with 400,000 people on YouTube from an Amsterdam apartment to 50 million across platform. And she moved from YouTube to Instagram. And millions of people joined her without one single euro of media budget, without a single cookie being, in retargeting. But what she did said was an emotional cookie. People knew why they would follow her. Like, they are called followers for a reason, right? They did follow her from one platform to the other because they knew what content to expect, what tonality, what set of values, what are the other people that flock together. And there's a lot to take from. So yes, we do suggest make a leap from one platform to the other. But in my understanding, if we talk about that sense of belonging and communities, platform is just a surface, and it includes television, includes offline events, newspapers. I really don't care. That is as old as Stone Age, that people want to be with people that are just like them. And you have to have a smart way to transport it from one platform to the other. And if you don't manage to do that, you will vanish together with the platform. And it happens like always. We have 1,500 creators in management. I would say probably 800 to 900 will not be in front of camera anymore in 5 years, because they just struggle at some point to make that transition.
And this kind of news that they're showing on TikTok, do you think it has a place on broadcast news? Do you think it can work? Do you think, like, should the newsrooms here today be kind of thinking about that style of video just for online, or can they take it onto TV as well?
Every platform is different. I would not say take a TikTok and put it into your 8 p.m. broadcast
But
news.
the conversational tone of it,
it's two things, I think. You have to be on TikTok, I believe. And it's not a thing of age. If you look into elections in France, it was insane what happened during the two Sunday election, the two weekend elections. The sheer amount of disinformation and fake on TikTok and Twitter. That was not 18 years. That was also 18-year-olds, but this was 60-year-olds who were watching videos 5 years old, pretending this just happened. So of course, if we take it seriously and we want to protect what we live in a liberal society, each and every one of us has to play a role also on TikTok. And maybe we have to adapt tonality. And maybe it is not a 20-minute dedicated piece. It is a very provocative 30-second clip. And I'm not saying I do not like it. I can really say I do not like it. But if we do not adapt to what's happening out there, we have effects like we see it all over the world. And if we are being too humble, too much elder statesman, it will be harder to re-win what we have. If from a global and historical perspective, we've all won the lottery. We have never lived in a society that has more freedom than we do. And an internet made things possible you could not imagine, like the effect of democratizing knowledge, access, everything. And if we do not find back now, the only solution is that a couple of politicians will say, hey, then let's ban it. And we just go back to another stage. And and I really do believe the time is now. And we are, specifically you guys, can control still a lot of the public perception of what's going on. And yeah.
Do you watch the news, or do you get it all from TikTok?
I only believe it I see on TikTok. No, of course I do watch the news. I still read, and many young people do. But that is really not the point. It making the Catholics even more Catholic won't help us.
Okay.
So there is 18-year-olds who reach Dan every week, but you will keep them even when they're 60. I think what is more concerning is that there's whole households who don't own a TV anymore, who never have a piece of paper in their living room, and get all the political opinion from TikTok videos. And who do we leave that to? That is more concerning, I think.
And what do you ideally think the media ecosystem should look like if journalists and influencers were able to work together in an ideal world? Paint that picture for us.
Look, actually, it is not so hard, because there is one man shows that have an inner drive to educate people on political issues, on news, maybe on more lighter topics, whatever, but they don't have an editorial team. How amazing would it be if they could just use the power of an editorial team? They would be excited to say, hey, I want to develop a format, something really big, because I cannot do it myself. I cannot be an investigative journalist because I have to upload a video every 24 hours. And that matches perfectly with established media brands who have exactly that firepower, but not the noise. And that is a huge part of our job, the matchmaking. Like what I often say is what we do is we're not a creator or a production company or whatever. We decode what moves people, and then we build sustainable communities around it. And very often, a news outlet and a creator have the same question. How do I reach 200,000 people that are interested in economy by the end of 2025? And both try the same. By 80%, their answers and strategies should overlap. But the remaining 20%, one is the answer to the other. I can deliver the content, I can deliver the reach, let's just do it together. So they have the same question, they sometimes the answer to each other, but someone has to bring them together. And that is basically our role. And then take care that the match is perfect. Yeah.
And how have traditional media been reacting to news influencers in your experience?
Of course, it's always the same. I started my career in music. Everybody was making fun of music streaming. Until the first major label, EMI, 100 years old, vanished within years, because like 5 years probably, because they did not want to give licenses to streaming. That's basically the root of it. Then I switched industry to film. I was joining UFA, which is a film production company. There were people who said, why do we pay a single personality the same amount of money per day that I would pay to a A-list actor? She hasn't been at acting school. But the point is, she did reach more people than the broadcaster did. And many people who did not adapt to that are not around anymore. So the clear answer is, I think there is no alternative to embrace it. Ridiculousing that they have not been on a proper journalistic school won't help. It gives you a little bit of a warm shower, but that won't remain for a couple of years. So you have to embrace it, and maybe really in a sense, like, I mean, I love the fact that Hugo was, you can argue a lot about if that is journalism, but in the end, he's reaching 5 million people who watch something about politics instead of a cat video. And at least they do. And if you educate them in a way that it is as close as possible to journalism, and if you take it as a funnel, now the business guy talks, and we were talking about premium content, maybe that's a way just to lure them into the actual content. Maybe you take two of them, one opinion, the other opinion, and here's the actual piece. I do not see any alternative to that.
So they're a threat that we have to work with? Or should we stop seeing them as a threat and start seeing them as a partner?
I do not know. Look, there is in tech startups, there is a law, they call it Conway's Law. If your organization does not mirror your product or your market, you will be gone. And if hierarchies and protective environments have built where we are today, are now vanishing because of networked power, everyone who is still a closed shop and does not network will vanish. So I think you have to, like I said, a network gets stronger if it's used. And I think you have to, it's not competition, it is the next evolutionary step to collaborate.
To not vanish.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Good. I'm going to open it up. Anybody in the audience have any questions? Feel free to jump in.
I have one.
Yeah.
You were clear that you didn't feel that taking those videos and putting them in your in a broadcaster's 8 p.m. bulletin is not the way it's going to succeed. Is there an opportunity for broadcasters to take the anchor of that 8 o'clock program and move them into this space?
Absolutely, yes, because that is how it works. It's a different topic, but if you look at late night shows, every successful US late night show is now actually 3-minute pieces or sometimes 30-second pieces that are put together to a 30-minute show, because this is how it works. You see one clip and you want to see the rest of it. So absolutely, yes. And you want to use the face. Like I said, people follow people. So I do agree. And I do also agree to some extent the tonality, maybe you can test it, but even a video from Instagram would not work on TikTok the other way around, because it's habit, and that is what I mean. But to be honest, I mean, if you should look into your audience. If they watch it on a smaller screen and in vertical, maybe it is worth it, because that is habit again. People do not watch in their hand in a vertical video a 20-minute piece. The studio is not made for that. Your eyes are not made for it, right? So yes, of course, somehow you have to adapt. But the face, I think, is the real reason, and that is platform agnostic. That's what I mean. If he creates or she creates authenticity in a smaller clip on TikTok, and they know, hey, there's more, and I have to switch the screen, it's bigger and it's more content. That definitely is a way to go. I do agree. Yes.
So go ahead.
Let's talk about money.
Yes, of course.
So many people in the room, have a presence on all of the different social media apps. Imagine if you're a broadcaster and you have your website, you've begun to post stuff on Instagram.
Yes.
Maybe you're thinking about TikTok. You know that the YouTube monetization model is probably better than some of the others. You used to be big on Facebook. What are you suggesting that they focus on? Is it TikTok first strategy? Is it an Instagram first strategy? What is it?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. First thing, we don't do it for the money. We do it for the people. But so I'm happy you're laughing at least. No, like I said, a lot to unpack. YouTube, yes, YouTube is the best channel to monetize if you talk about media, like just sending ads out there by itself, scaling it, but not necessarily, generally speaking. Fabian, for instance, maybe he does still have a YouTube account, but it's not notable. He makes a lot of money. He makes a living out of that. That is more through collaboration, of course, and you have to distinguish whatever you want to do. And then we talk about audience, and we can break it down. What we see these days is you can use TikTok to aggressively grow an audience, because there is a completely different mechanic. If you start from fresh, a new TikTok account, it takes about 15 minutes, and the algorithm knows very well what you like. And that is sense of belonging. That is not social demographics, it's psychographics. So it learns quickly. Subscribers, I don't care about subscribers on TikTok, because it's on a video asset. Every single video creates an ad hoc community around a set of values. And what we very often do is we take people from TikTok to, let's say, YouTube Shorts, which is a mayhem of monetization. YouTube Shorts does not make sense at all. But through TikTok, YouTube Shorts, you can bring them on YouTube traditional, the longer form. And there you create the subscribers. That is one way to look at it. But still, I would always say, yes, you do need reach, you need even more relevance, and the actual money. Of course, it's harder for a media house, Conway's Law, to monetize if you're used to, I have a sales house who sells CPM, social demographics. That is how you look at it. But you need a kaleidoscope view. You have to, to shake it, look through it again, and say, how do these guys make money? Not with a media sales team, because they release advertorial, 100K, bam, year's done. It's a different way of selling stuff. Clearly, we have never managed. We're about 400 people. We have never managed to train a media salesperson to sell our products in 6 years over 12 markets, because they sell CPM, they sell social demographics. And if they go into a pitch, and that is really a point I love to make, is a misconception of the industry. They think they're replacing just one thing with another. Like in the, I mean, there's an industrial revolution, right? And when the steam power machines were replaced by electricity, people did just remove the steam power engine, a centralized one, and replace it with a centralized huge electric motor. But productivity did not go through the roof. It took 10 more years when people started having tiny motors across the factory, and then you did see the effect. And now many people replace the sheer reach of an outlet with the sheer reach of an influencer and think it's the same thing, but it is not. You have to work differently with that. And that, I think, is advertorials. Very often, of course, you have to show, where the money is coming from, that this is not diluting the other part of business. And then even Facebook can make a lot of sense still. There's hardly any creator on Facebook, by the way. But I'm not sure if anybody of you has ever been related to Lad Bible. They're not doing too bad. And I think the most reach is still coming from Facebook. It's not it's a stretch to call it journalism, I get it, but they make a living on Facebook for ages, and they create IP. So if Lad Bible at some point would approach you guys and say, hey, could we make a Lad Bible magazine, 20 minutes on a broadcaster? It is an IP, you know what you get, you have a sense of what's the audience, and that is, and then I can sum it up here, but this is what I meant by the other misconception of social demographics. I always use the example, you get a pitch and people say, hey, look, I want to have an English person, wealthy, in their 60s, and so on. And then I show two pictures, King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne. And they are twins in social demographic matters. Born in the same year, English, divorced, children, live in a castle, from England, wealthy. But they would never, ever consume the same stuff. I mean, not anymore anyway, but this is how briefing works, right? This is how you think, but that does not make sense. And the counter example, we were just talking yesterday, I was sitting with a lot of lovely people there. I was talking about Titus Dittmann. He's a skateboarding professor out of Germany. He's a professor, millionaire, 70, living in one of the most boring areas of Germany. If I would target him as such, it does not make sense. But if I would ask him what is a fulfilled weekend, his answers would be very close to that of maybe a 25-year-old skateboarding professional from Brazil. And that is not how you sell media. You sell media, people think, castle, England, wealthy. Advertorial, I sell adventure, risk-taking, live your life. And I think that is crucial in the transition of that business.
Okay. Any other questions?
When we are talking about media and the authenticity of the social network, so how can you explain the difference that any media doesn't have popularity like a single influencer that you're talking about? I mean, you cannot have that millions and millions of followers on Instagram, on TikTok, on media. Does it have something to do with the trust in media by itself, or just trust to someone who is authentic, like a person, and then you follow him as a kind of celebrity, but not from the media side, but from the social networks?
I do believe that if we talk about reach, a media brand can still generate a lot of reach, but I think relatability is the answer. I cannot relate to a logo. I have to have a face. I have to have friction. Yeah, that one works.
Yeah.
I think it works, and that is, that's another thing. And I've seen that in acting, in the film industry. People told actors, do not show your true self online, because a real actor is a canvas. You want to be in different roles. Please don't do it. It took only 2 or 3 years when the same actor said, I have to build up reach because I'm not getting through the casting. Netflix is looking at my Instagram reach. If it's good, I don't think so, but it happened, right? And to your point, so yes, the hosts, not every host, but some of them, some lighthouse personalities that you can relate to have to build a personality brand. And sometimes broadcasters say, why should I invest money into that guy building a personality brand, leaving the broadcaster, maybe writing his own book, whatever. Yeah, it's true. But you rather cannibalize yourself and take the 2 years and run, and you be a career catalyst for everybody. Because if I'm a young journalist and I can pick whether I go to that broadcast or the other one, whether I make my own influencer story, but there is this one media house that has generated over and over and over again journalistic personality brands that is an asset. No, but it's okay. But that is really okay. Like, this is the business model of McKinsey, right? You don't go to McKinsey to stay there for 40 years. You go there because you get hired afterwards.
Good. We have another question from over here. Yeah.
Hi. This is so interesting, and I think the collaboration between maybe I don't traditional media, which I count ourselves part of now, even as it makes sense to me. We have writers, for example, particularly in our sport, like our rugby writer is such a star that we created, but he's now transcendent. And I know the threat to us is that his brand is big enough that he could do this by himself and monetize it, So we fight hard to keep him. But you do see it in the environment where some of the kind of personalities you're talking about actually get TV shows and radio shows. So I think they are that moves, I think, a lot of the people that you work with, I think, into a space where you're kind of moving in to where we are. There is some credibility. It is commercially prudent for the people that you manage to listen to your advice, to remain authentic, to try and fact check if they can, to bring on journalists when they're doing something that they should be putting forward. So what I'm interested to know from you is, while they're not regulated in the same way as we would be, have people coming us a ton of bricks if we don't do the journalism the way it's meant to be journalistically, whatever. There is a self-regulation imposed by, we've set ourselves in the space as the credible news influencers. What, in your sense, I'm going to count you as traditional now, right? And the people you're representing in this new world. What are the existential threats to you guys? Because I know, looking at, because we do a lot of work disinformation, familiar with what's going on online in our landscape, there are a lot of people who are getting as many, if not more, followers, but they don't have to worry about credibility, and they are monetizing it through certain streams. And they are doing it because they are successfully tapping into the worst of the algorithms, the emotional cookie that you talk about, but the one that generates most sort of deep and passionate engagement around hate, around anger, around fear. What are you worried about? We should be worried about you. What are you worried about? Because that's what I'm worried about.
You should not be worried about me. It's only my German accent that makes me sound aggressive. A couple of things. One that I already mentioned. I really do believe, and that is more on a personal. I have a degree in political science because I want to become a journalist, by the way. I'm really concerned about that liberalism is in decline, and we do not do enough against it. And by we, I literally mean us as well, and the creators. It makes me furious how they do not really use their voice to protect a free, also internet society. That's on a side note. That really concerns me on a global level, but also from a business side, because then you go into regulation, obviously, and that is something I don't understand. Why do also creators not understand how existential it can be if they say, hey, let's just ban TikTok in Europe because it's basically a weapon. And it is, by the way. We did research on elections in France and Germany. There have been so many bots, obviously financed by Russia, very obvious. It is dangerous. And then you now could talk about AI for ages, how it generates not only disinformation but also a depressing amount of mediocre content, flooding the algorithm. That is also existential, obviously, to us. But also, to be honest, we've been in that space now for forever, really, like forever. As long as YouTube, there is a company like ours. But now the really, really big dogs who own a lot of content discover the love for YouTube. And that that is existential to us, because they sit on a bunch, like you said, they need artificial intelligence to go through the archives. If they just open tomorrow, they have thousands of hours of really excellent content being made by people who really know what they're doing. that will also flood the platforms. So if AI is coming from the right, excellent content is coming from the left. Of course, there is only maybe 20 hours a day you can watch, and and that has to be taken away from somebody. So that is another point, of course. Yeah.
All good. Any other questions?
But it's the opportunity
Yeah.
for you guys. That's what I want to say. Right.
Thanks. What about Twitch? So it's mostly similar, or this one thing the most similar to television, because it's live, and yeah, in the end, it's a niche product. For, at least in Germany, you have 4 million
not
people.
Anymore, yes.
Not anymore. It's growing, and that's why we are talking about it within RTL, and we will doing something on the Spendenmarathon, so 24 hours. So what is your opinion? Bring journalistic content to
Totally
Twitch?
do it. Twitch is my favorite platform because it seems like it's TV because it's live and streaming, but try messaging your anchor and he answers. And that happens on Twitch. And not the anchor answers. He's got people who do, as volunteers, manage the community. And I have a friend who, he's obviously from gaming, and that is another misconception. Not everybody is wearing cat headphones on Twitch, but this guy is coming from gaming, and he's hosting in his own private kitchen a cooking show. He's inviting guests. Once I was there, and we were talking about, I don't know, something in Argentina, and we did not know what's going on. The community gave us the answer, so we could keep the rhythm going. You know, they gave us the answer. The other one is giving a fun fact. People loved to be in that community. That is a very strong sense of belonging. I love it a lot. Of course, it needs a lot of moderation and hosting of that. But I think pop culture is being made now on Twitch a lot, and IP.
For guys like us, for companies.
Don't monetize through Twitch itself. But by the way, most big Twitch streamers make a lot by subscriptions. It's just called differently, donations and everything else. So that makes a lot of sense because they have that sense of belonging and they think, I want you to be on screen. There's one famous example from Germany called Rocket Beans that were just nerds talking about computer. They've been taken off of broadcasters 2 or 3 times, and they survived every time because they went to Twitch. And super fans that grew up with them for 20, 30 years were donating money to a commercial project. And we are invested as ERA in a football league called Kings League. That's a new sports JRPK that lives only on Twitch. And because the finale for the Brazilian league was watched by 80 million people in parallel. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Tobias, and Stefan's here as well. We're going to leave it there and take a break for coffee, I believe. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.